Buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos en esta próxima conversación que nos tiene muy entusiasmados por escucharlos. Nos acompañan Gonzalo García, artista, próximamente Amanda de la Garza, ella está a nada de acercarse aquí a la sala. Ella es la subdirectora artística del Museo Nacional, Centro de Arte Reina Sofía. Nos acompañan Perla Krauze, artista, y Erika Harsch, también artista, moderando Charles Moore, que es curador. La conversación va a ser en inglés. Nos da muchísimo gusto tenerles acá. Les cedo la palabra.
Thank you all for being here to celebrate the book launch of Global Conversations Mexico, published by Moose Publishing, with the support of Salt Artist Retreat, founded by Carrie Mackin. Before we start, I want to thank some of the participants who are not here with us today because they had previous engagements. Dorelia Lazo, who's the director of Sonomaco, who wrote the foreword of the book. Other participants that included Fernanda Canales, Nicolas Guzman, Fernando Lapos, Jose Pepe Lapov, Eliza Niesenbaum, and Bosco Sodi. This book actually would not be possible without the support of Salt Artist Retreat. So I would like to take a moment to thank Carrie Mackin, who is here with us today. So I know she's going to kill me for embarrassing her right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I want you to come up here and so the people can thank you. Yeah.
Woo! Woo! That was electric when we touched. I won't take up too much time, but Salt Artist Retreat is a retreat in New Jersey, in the United States. It's a retreat that is designed to help support the wellness of artists and art professionals. And it's unique because I don't know, and you probably don't know anything like this. We basically talk about art, talk about career change, talk about business strategy, and get massages, and meditate, and do yoga, and eat well. And we pay for everything, so it's kind of wonderful. And it's invite only. Charles is one of our curators. He helps bring artists to my attention, which is really amazing. And I'm grateful that we work together on this book. And I'm so happy to be able to support the book, Charles's endeavors, and all of the artists who are involved. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Mackin. And so I'm joined here today with curator Amanda de la Garza, who's the artistic deputy director of Reina Sofia Museum in Madrid, artist Perla Krauze, artist Erika Harsch, and artist Gonzalo García. So I'll start with a question for all of you. And I think all of us have either lived or worked in another country, not like our home country. I worked in Italy for 3 years, and I've worked across borders. The first show I've ever curated outside of the United States was actually in Mexico with Gonzalo García. So my question for you all would be, what do you lose and or gain from living or working outside of your home country?
Should I start?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much. It's great to be here and with the wonderful colleagues. And also, it's been some time since we had this conversation. And then it was before I went to Reina Sofia. And I mean, of course, for me, it has been really an interesting experience. I'm very grateful for it in the sense that I feel this excitement of getting to know a new scene, the nuances of a different history of art, but also in this case, being a Mexican curator, Mexican professional, and due to the history between Spain and Latin America, like historical relationship of like colonialism, of course, and but also of a lot of cultural relationships. Then for me, it has been really important to understand how to bring these collaborations and how to bring this mutual, understanding between Latin America and Spain, how to produce within the museum a different approach towards Latin American art, because we are also a collecting institution for Latin American artists, and we do an extensive program regarding Latin American artists in Spain. And in that sense, for me, it's like trying to bring a different perspective, and also bring light into things that haven't been shown about Latin American, but also at the same time introduce like different connections. For example, we are working with an institution from Eastern Europe. So we're going to do a show with our collection that will bring together Latin American artists, Spanish artists, and artists from Eastern Europe to understand through art how can we have a reading of history that is different from like a more traditional Western European perspective. And yes, so for me, this is really exciting. But at the same time, of course, I miss very much the Mexican scene, but I'm still very connected with it.
Do we all answer? Well, is it heard? Yes. So the only years that I've lived outside of Mexico, can you hear now? Yeah. So it was in England, in the UK. I did a course there and I went to live 4 years. And it was complex, I would say also, but it was the best thing I think I could have ever done, because the work shifted. And that's where I discovered what it meant to be drawing with materials, painting in space, changing materials. Just it evolved in many, many ways. And so I'm really grateful for that experience for those 4 years.
Thank you, Charles, Eric. I've been in New York 25 years, but I live also in Italy and Germany and Brazil. And the experience of living abroad for me was very strong in terms of understanding the difficulties and vicissitudes that people have to undergo to acquire a visa, a passport, a permit. And after going through all those circumstances and finally locating myself in New York to stay, made me understand that not only I had to reconstruct my own perspective, my own identity, but it was more powerful what I was bringing with me to bring a voice of who I was as a Mexican, and also of having roots from many different countries and having lived in many different countries. So sort of a diaspora, sort of obviously an immigrant, understanding my position, and not only that voice of me as an immigrant, but giving voice to so many immigrants that don't have the opportunity to have a voice or speaking about what they go through, not in such a privileged position that we have as artists.
Yeah, that's so important, right, Erika? So I'm a painter mostly. I'm an artist, but also I love to paint. And I went to a residency in Sweden maybe 8 years ago or 10 years ago. And it was very interesting for me to see how people in other countries react of our own heritage as painting, like Mexican painters, our heritage as a country who who has a lot of history in painting. And also last year I went to an exhibition in Berlin, and it was actually a wonderful experience because the people in the exhibition were asking about Mexico through painting, you know. They were very interested, of course, in the work, but also it was a pretext to open new conversations about the two countries. So I think that art, it's also that opportunity to have new conversations in different ways and different perspectives.
And Amanda, you mentioned something in your response about your Reina Sofia being a collecting institution. And so for some people, they may not understand what that means. Can you tell them what the difference is between a non-collecting and collecting institution and why that matters?
Yes, of course. I mean, Reina Sofia is an institution that actually started as an art center in the mid 80s, and it's part of the Spanish transition to democracy after the dictatorship, and is one key institution in that role. But then, after a few years of being an art center for modern and contemporary art, it became a museum. And becoming a museum means having a collection. We inherited a collection from a contemporary art museum that existed in the university in Spain. And what happened also is like one major thing for us is that we received through a diplomatic and very intense and negotiation, MoMA in New York returned the Guernica to Reina Sofia, which kind of marked the key aspect of our collection, of our mission as a museum. And in that time, the Spanish government decided to very briefly, I won't tell all the story, but decided to collect avant-garde artists, Spanish avant-garde artists, Miró, Picasso, Dalí, and it was like a really, really strong collection that we have on avant-garde artists or avant-garde period. And then when there was a reorganization from national collections, there was a division between Prado Museum and Reina Sofia. So our collection starts from the year Picasso was born, and that's our mandate. So from Picasso's birth until the year of Picasso's birth until today. And we are acquiring a lot of contemporary art now and like trying to strengthen our collection in that direction. We have around 26,000 pieces in different storages in the museum and outside the museum, and around 2,000 artworks from Latin America and also archives. And in that sense, so we like a great deal of our mission has to do with these collections, and of course showing the collections, being a lending institution, meaning that we are a center for the loans of many exhibitions of modern and contemporary art in the world. And in that sense, we also do have a temporary exhibition program, but the collection actually, it's like one of the vital organs of the institution, and a great deal of our work goes into research of the collection. And but at the same time, we do understand the need of also having this more fresh view through temporary exhibitions, both of modern and contemporary art.
Awesome. There's a couple things I don't want to forget, and I know that all three artists are exhibiting at this fair today. So if you could just briefly tell the audience which gallery you're exhibiting with and your booth number, if you know it. You can just say the gallery.
Sorry. Well, Galeria Ronis and Cadogan Gallery, but I don't know the numbers.
Ricardo Reyes Arte on the photography section is F04, I think, F05, photography part.
And for me, it's a booth share between the gallery from Berlin, who is Kornfeld Gallery, and also my gallery here in Mexico City, CAM Gallery in Polanco. And the booth is C108. So yeah, please come.
And you can keep that. So Gonzalo García, who we worked together at Cam Galleria for his show Flesh
Yes.
in 2023.
Yes.
And if you know his work, a lot of his work was inspired by film, and it's starting to evolve to be inspired by theater. So can you talk a little bit about that evolution between being inspired by film and how different theater has been for you?
So I always think about artists like investigators. You know, we have a very similar process to scientists and science. So for me, the painting is always a bridge between my own practice and other mediums. In the beginning was literature and books. And 5 years ago, I started with movies from the 70s, Mexican movies. Because actually, in that period of time, movies were very social and political. They were very loud about that. So that's why I started to make a connection between these movies, especially Arturo Ripstein's movies, which I love, and my paintings. And today, it has evolved into something else. I will say more complex. But I think that for artists, it's very important to maintain curiosity, you know, to maintain the processes like new, always investigating new ways to portray painting, but also, I don't know, your perspective about world, you know, in general. So yeah, for me, always painting, it has to evolve, always. So yeah, I mean, that's the main thing with painting right now. And also the trip that I did in Berlin last year. Actually, this is my gallery's maxi. I was also very inspired by Berlin and by a museum in Berlin called Odessa Collection, which was a collection that was running away from the war, Ukraine war. And actually, that was very inspiring to me. So the new works that you will see in the booth of Conference and also Cam Gallery, it has to be with that inspiration that I took in Berlin. Yeah.
And Amanda, I saw this interview recently you did, and you spoke about how this painting you saw in Russia changed your view of art. It was a painting that used the color red. Can you tell me about any other masterpieces you've seen now that you've been living in Spain that have changed your view of art or inspired you in any way?
Yes, it was like an experience I had being a very young person. I studied history of art afterwards, but my background is in social science. And so I was 19 and I saw a Rothko painting in the L'Ermitage in St. Petersburg. And it was really like, for me, like groundbreaking. And also, I remember there was this Matisse painting, The Red Room, which was, kind of a crucial moment, if you could say, like this sort of a very strong connection, like even a spiritual, so to speak. And first, this sort of experience, I think you only can have it very few times. If not, it's not that you can connect in this very profound way so often. And it happened to me for the second time 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe, in New York, in the Metropolitan Museum, when I saw like a paint of an Ingres painting. There is also a woman in a room. You know, that's a very special painting, and in that sense, I also remember experiencing that, of course, with the black paintings of Goya in El Prado. And that's not so far-fetched or far away from Reina Sofía, because since the history of the art the art collection we have has to do with this very long period of modernity. And there's always this idea that, Goya was actually the beginning of, a different perspective. And it's so beautiful also to see how we are now in the future. We will be working also in some projects with the Prado Museum and trying to connect these two national museums and collections, in the sense that actually many contemporary artists that have worked with us, or that have been in Madrid, actually they also have a lot of classical art references, so to speak, that are in one of really marvelous collection of El Prado Museum that's just almost across the street from Reina Sofía. And in that sense, I would say that that it would be the black paintings of Goya that have had a really profound impact. And also it was very interesting because I went that time again with my nieces that are teenagers, and they were so really impacted by the paintings.
Right.
And 16 and 19-year-old girls, and for me it was like a confirmation that these paintings are very meaningful, not only for artists but for a lot of people.
I'm just watching the excitement of Gonzalo's face as you talk about the Goya paintings. Is there something you might want to say about those paintings?
That painting is universal, right? I mean, it's a wonderful thing to think that little children can connect with these very strong, dark, heavy, paintings, European paintings, right? So I think that's the wonderful thing about art. It's a connection for all of us. Yeah.
Can I say something about the black paintings? Yeah. I love them, really love them, and I remember not seeing them for many years. I saw them in person when I was maybe 40, but I took my children, and they knew the love I had for Goya's black paintings, and it was we saw the paintings in the books beforehand. And it was just they know that's going like that for me and for them. It's amazing.
Oh. Erika, I remember when we first met and I interviewed you in the Harvard Club in New York City. And we spoke about one of your projects called The Passport, United States of North America. And it's very interesting that project has now toured museums across the globe since 2009 and still continues to this day. Can you tell us a little bit about that project and why it's still relevant today and the importance of it? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So as I said, as an immigrant, I'm a painter. And there was a moment in New York that painting was not the medium that was shown around. And I was working with a photographer and with a video artist. So I started to investigate into other techniques. And I've always been very multi-indisciplinary. So I found voice in photography and video installations. So I did first a project that was premiered at PhotoFest Biennial that was an installation that recreated the monarch sanctuary in Michoacán, Mexico, with 60,000 monarch butterflies and a video and sound of the fluttering of hundreds of thousands of butterflies. While I was doing that project in Michoacán, I was going through all the complexities of visas. And I'm seeing these butterflies somehow having the same route without borders, flying back and forth from using the territory as a need, also the convenience for its own life cycle and process. So it came immediately the idea to create this passport that would unify United States, Mexico, and Canada with the emblematic representation of the monarch butterfly that would unify North America without borders. And talking about using the territory for the needs of human beings and with a cyclical pattern of entrance and return. So I created in 2009 the Passport of the United States of North America that works as an installation and performance that I play the role of an immigration officer where people spin a wheel of fortune with the possibility to win a passport. They can actually win a piece of art and walk out with this passport that has information about the monarch butterfly, the NAFTA treaty, immigration policies, environmental information about how artificial borders block the natural path of many animals. Who would have told me that a project that I had as a hope of somehow I had lived already in Europe and for me was very relevant, the unification and the creation of the euro and the European, community, that I said, well, it should happen in America, in at least in North America. We are the same. And for me, going to United States and say, I'm American. No, you're not. You're Mexican. I'm American. Every single person that lives in the continent is American, right? So after that, the project obviously has been shown internationally in many biennials and museums, the same as in streets in Poland. I use an empty space, a vacant commercial spot in the Piotrkowska Strasse, and people arrive there, as it was a pop-up passport office, and people arrive there with the need of winning this passport. People arrive with photographs, whole families. And it was very powerful to take the project out of a museum or an art institution and be woven in the tapestry of a urban context. Then that project made me do other projects related to immigration, and I did Under the Same Sky with Dream. In 2014, I saw the very first photograph of undocumented detention centers for undocumented minors, where they took all the children that were sent without parents to cross the border as undocumented, looking for asylum. And it was a very powerful piece that ended up being acquired by the Denver Art Museum. So I always use a very dark political circumstance related to the need of finding a place on earth that we could call home, and that links immigration, environmental situations, and political issues. And I was working for many years doing projects about immigration, always with the hope that things would have gotten better. And who would have told us that those detention centers that were jails where they put children were just going to be today increasing and creating more detention facilities that are actually a humongous business, because every single person that enters in a detention center costs to the government more money than a luxury hotel daily. And who makes the business? Because these are for-profit centers. So it's very complicated, and it's just getting worse. So 2009, in retrospective, nothing had changed, only gotten worse.
And, and speaking of that, Gonzalo and I had a show last year, along with 3 other artists, 3 other galleries, and Gonzalo was not allowed to attend the opening. And it was very unfortunate because the funding was there for him to attend the opening, but the visa didn't get approved. Talk a little bit about the experience with that exhibition and what that meant to you not being able to attend the opening.
I mean, for me, it was, as Erika said, in the beginning, I was very shocked because I truly, truly believe that I will get the visa because, of course, I only wanted to exhibit in New York. It was my first opportunity to have my solo show in New York. But then afterwards, I understood that it was not personal. It was a situation for all of us as Latinos and also as Mexicans. And yeah, why should I be the exception? You know, I mean, it's for all of us this very complicated situation, right? So in the beginning, I was very mad. But afterwards, I realized that it was the correct thing to do, you know, to not be in the show as a political statement, also to understand the situation also for the artists trying to exhibit in other places in the United States and not being able to do that. So in a sense, I mean, of course, my galleries were also disappointed in a way, but for me, it was something about my ethics, you know? I truly believe that today is a very rare time to be a Mexican in the United States. So yeah, the exhibition was also about that. I mean, not intentionally, but in the end, that was the final result. So I think that in generally, I was pleased about that experience. You know, Charles, I truly believe that it was the right thing to do to not attempt to my exhibition in New York. Yeah.
And I think Perla probably needs no introduction. And if you know anything about her work, you know that materials are very important to her. Can you tell us a little bit about the materials you work with and why you use those materials?
Yes, Charles. Thank you. Thanks for having me here, first of all. So, materials to me speak of the place where they come from. It's like speaking of memory of a place. So, for example, if I work with stone, and if I use stone like I did for this big exhibition in Pedregal, it means speaking with recinto, the local volcanoes, the Xitle, the history and memory of a place. If I'm going to Oaxaca to work with materials there, I would use black ceramics from San Bartolo, red earth, textiles, green sandstone from the place. So for me, each place has its particular wealth in materials, and I'm loving the idea that I can speak about that through materials. But also, well, memory is it's a big word for me, and time. So I'm also doing something for recovering memory, which is, for example, with very simple means and fabric, looking at the floors. I'm always walking everywhere, looking at the floors. And for example, here we already see these lines, but then I see those cracks and imperfections in the sidewalks. So everything speaks to me. And even if they're very, very small, not important marks, I want to make them visible. So I do a frottage, I do imprints with any cloth, any fabric, like just canvas, with graphite, chunk of graphite, and I bring my spray with me, hairspray, by the way, normal spray. And then I go all over the place and make these kind of topographies that speak to me about anywhere that when you walk, you just make visible what it's not, what's overlooked. So in a way, that's one of the most important things for me to see what it's not seen by many, really. You just have to really look carefully. And a little more about materials. So if I'm in Oaxaca, I would use black ceramic, which is fragile, or stone that has a geological presence and history. So it's all depending what it is that I'm needing to say, I use them in different ways.
I know at least with two of you, our love for books and writers and philosophers have come up. Amanda, I know when we interviewed, it was over Zoom, and you had this humongous library behind you. And we talked a little bit about writers and books and philosophers. And Gonzalo, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation that didn't include a conversation about philosophy and philosophers. And my heroes happen to be writers like Dostoevsky and Immanuel Kant and Milan Kundera and the work of Dr. Cornel West. Amanda, can you tell me a little bit about the writers and philosophers that inspire and influence your work? And then next, Gonzalo.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is that my library here is in a storage room that I still didn't have the chance to bring it to Madrid. So I miss my books very much because not so much for having them, but rather because the books kind of accompany in different moments of your life, and they are connected to very specific. For me, of course, like theory and, philosophy has been very important, but I would say more of like in a very important and crucial period of my time as a curator, when I started out my career, it was actually like poetry, which influenced me even more than theory. I mean, theory like kind of gave me the tools to approach more like contemporary art and more like in a more conceptual way or in a historical way in that sense. But I would say that in terms of how I approach certain artists as a curator, and now it would be like much more poetry, both the like Mexican poetry, Latin American poetry, but also like, from, a lot of places. And in that sense, because there is for me like a deep connection, between the form of poetry and art in that sense, and how you can approach it from a like different perspective than just very analytical and so on. And but the more and more my job is not so much of curating, but rather of programming and, creating the framework for exhibitions and artists to be at the museum and our collection and so on. And but it's still, I believe, like there's this kind of subtlety that needs to be there in your work, especially working with contemporary artists. Like I would say that also like artists, both living and non-living artists, have influenced me a lot in how, how I see the art world, how I curate. But I mean, I really, for example, I just came from a studio visit with an artist I'm gonna be working with in the future, and I'm like completely excited, So I mean, more than having, of course, there's some names that are relevant in terms of theory, and that it's also that in a way I believe now that I'm not so young anymore, or not starting off my career, that of course that's also generational, like I'm in my mid-40s, so my generation was, of course, very influenced by all this French philosophy, post-structuralist philosophers, and so on. But, afterwards, there's so many other writers and philosophers that have influenced much more. Like, for example, an artist as Hito Steyer, that has been so influential for many of us in understanding contemporary image and video work and so on. So that's also something generational, I think. And we, of course, in our work, try to keep be updated, in all of this. But that also like kind of shifts in a way, like through time, and also through like different projects and, like moments in your professional life.
So, as I said, for me, painting it's a bridge between different mediums, and I'm very interested in Paul B. Preciado, who is a transgender writer and philosopher. And the new paintings that we are exhibiting here in Saunamaco have the theme about castration, because they were inspired by a Mexican movie called Los Cachorros from the 70s, by the director Jorge Fons. And I was very intrigued and very interested in how Mexican cinema can approach these very difficult themes in the 70s. And Paul B. Preciado, for example, he spoke about their role in our society and also in our generation, about the penis and about the importance of the penis in this machismo and in this capitalism and also like masculine societies. So I was very intrigued how, for us, for example, as Mexicans, we have this reference from cinema, and then we also can see that this reference or this thinking about these strong things, you can see also in philosophy, right? So the paintings are the mix interpretation about this reference from Mexico and also this other reference from other countries that spoke about these difficulties about the penis and about being a human being in a society that gives a lot of importance of that matters, you know? So the paintings, they are not literally, actually they are very ambiguous. And I love the quality of mystery in painting. So I really, really interested in that. But yeah, the theme is strong. And also in philosophy, you can have that strong themes to think about it.
And Erika, we talked a lot about your work, United States of North America, but you mostly paint and sculpt. Can you tell us a little about the work you have at the fair and a little bit more about your sculptures and your working with wood and objects and things like that?
That's a great question, because for a time I was known as the immigration artist, multimedia, video installations, but COVID put us all in pause. And during COVID, I moved to the forest in Hudson Valley, upstate New York, and that literally put a pause of 2 years while I was building a house, relocating, and diving into understanding living inside of a state park, inside of a forest, where you have to be at peace with nature, with animals, with trees. And I started researching a lot, or continuing my constant research on environmentalism and philosophies of ecofeminism. And now I'm obsessed with materials. I've always done a lot of materials. I did furniture design, sculpture, etching, painting, sculpture, paintings, and I'm trying to mix right now everything. And I go to the forest, get my own materials, photograph, make photo collages like the one that is here at Ricardo Reyes Arte. And now I'm obsessed with the communication, interspecies collaborations in the means of reconstructing a better relationship with our environment, where as humans, we don't have a higher hierarchy, but we can actually be symbiont with nature and listen. I'm obsessed now with neuroscience and the way we can communicate in another level. And going back to philosophy, I'm obsessed. I discovered this through neuroscience, the letters of Heidegger to Hannah Arendt of silencing the mind, of how he's teaching her how to meditate, but in a perspective to gather more knowledge.
I don't want to lose the opportunity for Gonzalo to talk about the Tamaya's Biennial Award he just won. Tell us a little bit about that award, and it's the top award for painting in Mexico.
Yes.
And you won it last year? Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was very happy to be one of the winners of the last Biennale, Tamayo's last Biennale, which is like a very important thing for me as a painter, but also because actually the painting that I applied with, it was about this theme, about this movie that I just told you, and about the male part of this type of questioning about our society. So it's a very thrill, like sentiment, like feeling to have this award with a very strong and political painting, right? Because I think that a painting has to be something uncomfortable in a sense, It's not about pleasing the eye. It's about confronting our perspective of the world through painting or through any medium, like Erika says, she's a very multidisciplinary artist, but her vision is in all the process and all the practice, which I really admire. So yeah, for me, it was a very happy moment for me to have this painting in the collection of Tamayo. And it's a very strong and political piece. So I'm very pleased with that. Yeah, very happy. And also, just to mention, the other two winners were also lovely, Otiana Ofel and Javier Peláez. So yeah, it was a very, very interesting Biennale in that sense also.
And I know we're going to probably get cut off soon. So if there are any projects you have coming up in the next year, anywhere in the world, can you tell us about them so the people know where they are? All of you. You can start, Amanda.
Well, yeah, of course, I was like mentioning this exhibition, and we're going to do with the collection of like two museums, and that will bring together this like different perspective that will involve modern and contemporary art, Latin American artists in our collection, Spanish artists, and also Eastern artists from Eastern Europe, and in that sense, I'm very excited to work with the collection of Reina Sofía, because as being trained as a curator, there's actually no other way that you can actually understand where artwork than working with it directly as curator, or writing about it. And in that sense, I'm very, very excited. And also because I still, even though, as I've said, I don't, it's not my main role to curate right now, but I still feel that it's important to develop these. And also, like right now, I became the president of CIMAM, which is the International Council of Museums of Contemporary and Modern and Contemporary Art. And that's like, a great responsibility, but I also feel really, really excited about it, because I wouldn't say I don't romanticize museums or art, but I do believe there's an really important potential and responsibility of our role in society and what we can bring into the experience of people, into the complexity that is more than ever needed in the world. Now we live in a society that kind of wants very simple things, or a very simple and binary understanding of the world, and polarized as well. So I do believe museums are places of complexity, and because the art world is very contradictory and complex, and in that sense, I'm very, very excited about. It's for 3 years, this role. So, and our conference, we have an annual conference. It's like a membership association. It's going to happen in Zimbabwe. So it's the first time after 50 editions of this conference that for the first time it will happen in an African country, in Zimbabwe. And that's for me, a major change also in how we understand perspectives of new museums, new scenes, other point of references. It's going to happen in Harare, in the gallery, the National Gallery of Zimbabwe. And that for me, it's really, really exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to do that work.
Well, I'm working on a show, a research in Oaxaca mainly, already 2 years. Not sure where it will be exhibited, but really happy working for that purpose. So, that too.
Well, I have some projects in New York, in Merida at the end of the year, and a couple in Europe for next year.
And for me, I'm going to have my solo exhibition in Casa Chihuahua in Chihuahua this year. And next year, I'm going to have my first solo show in Berlin with Kornfeld Gallery. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah. Please stay in tune.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all, the panelists.